The Seahawks were back in action in pads at the VMAC on Thursday. Plenty of highlight plays on both sides. Who stood out and which players left something to be desired in the 8th training camp practice? I'm going to be breaking it all down here on our latest edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in on this Thursday evening, whether you're in Cheney, Washington, the former training camp home of the Seattle Seahawks, or down in Athens, Georgia. Thanks for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. After a walkthrough-oriented practice on Wednesday, the Seahawks were back in pads on Thursday morning, a 10 a.m. Pacific time start, trying to get ready for some of those Eastern time zone games coming up this season that are on the Seahawks 2025 schedule. I'm going to be diving into the biggest takeaways, what I saw, what I heard at the VMAC today, and we are going to take a hiatus today on camp interviews. I did have Marquez Valdes-Scantling interview ready to go, just could not get the video to upload. So we will be unleashing that on tomorrow's Blue Friday show. Instead, going to be looking at who's hot, who's not, my week 1 training camp stock watch, who's helped their cause on the bubble watch, and who has hurt themselves so far in training camp. So we'll be diving into that on this episode. Without further ado, let's get to it. Now for your lead story here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The Seahawks back in action in pads, morning practice for the first of 3 practices they'll have during training camp that are this format. 9:40 on the field, ready to go, getting geared up for that 10 a.m. start that they've got a bunch of games this year in the Eastern time zone that are going to be ready for those early Pacific time starts. And on defense, there were certainly some big plays allowed. This was a very back and forth practice. And I think Mike Macdonald had to love that both sides, there wasn't one that was utterly dominant. Both sides were coming through with some big plays, and then the other side would have something to say on the next play. A lot of really good responses on both sides of the football, and that's how your football team gets better. I want to start today's discussion on the defensive side of the football, and if you've heard this name a lot this week, there's a reason for it. Nick Emmanwori, the second-round pick out of South Carolina, he just continues to stack good day after good day after good day in his first training camp. And again, here on our Thursday practice, the 8th practice, he was one of the stars on defense for the Seahawks, making the play of the day in the middle of practice. I believe it was their 3rd team session, 11 or 11 they had done in practice today. Jalen Milrose got pressure coming after him in the interior, and he can't get the ball, can't get outside. He's got edges that are swarming around him. So he tries to throw a low pass in an area where it looked like from the sideline where we were at that it was going to be a clear incompletion, but there was a receiver that was close enough in the vicinity that it wouldn't be intentional grounding. What he forgot is that Nick Emmanwori is basically Stretch Armstrong, and this guy at every bit of 6'4" has the ability to get to footballs that nobody else on the field can. I mean, you add in the speed, the quickness with his size. He just has an uncanny ability to get to footballs that other guys just simply are not going to. And even with this ball being thrown into the dirt, basically, Nick Emmanwori was along the sideline, pivoted away from his receiver, and then he gets fully extended, somehow gets his hands underneath the ball and picks it off, then sprints over to the berm and autographs the football. I don't know that Mike Macdonald was necessarily excited about that. I know the offense certainly wasn't, but went over and signed the football and gave it to a fan. So you've got swag, you've got athleticism, you've got ball skills, the things that Nick Emmanwori did at the college level, they are showing up. And some may say, well, that was the 3rd team offense he was doing it against. Yes, that's very true, but He also had several snaps with the first team defense, had a couple blitzes where he was bearing down on the quarterback. He's getting his opportunities. They are just giving him a lot of extra snaps with all three units because he's a rookie and he needs that experience to learn this defense. But it doesn't matter what team he's on, who he's going up against. Number 3 just continues to shine day in, day out. And if you're wondering about the hype train, look, it ain't slowing down for big number 3. He continues to be one of the best players for the Seahawks in this training camp, and it's going to continue to open up more opportunities to play with the starting unit. As far as a few other things that jumped out to me today at the VMAC, the cornerback competition. I think that you may have a new contender here, and this ties to the absence of some players right now. And I understand that there's some personal issues for Shaquille Griffin, Ernest Jones. They've been away from the team for a while. Ernest Jones was here for the first 4 practices. We really have not seen Shaquille Griffin. The first practice, he was ill, so he didn't actually participate. He was on the field, but didn't do anything. He practiced the next day, and then we haven't seen him since. And there's obviously something significant that is going on his end. And so hopefully he'll be able to get back on the field soon. But with him and Shamar Jean-Charles, who's been injured and hasn't practiced, both being out, Damarian Williams has, for the most part, had a pretty solid training camp. And today, he picked off Drew Lock, final red zone period and practice, baited him, was able to jump the route. I think Drew Lock just simply didn't see him, thought his receiver in the back left-hand corner was open. Not so fast. Damarian Williams jumps it, and it's tough to know whether the ball would have been returned to the end zone or the other side because you had all of the players sprawled out on the 25-yard line. So it's not like on ensuing offensive players could go hunt him down in pursuit without having to dodge a bunch of their teammates. So, but I think there's a chance in a game setting that it would have been a pick 6 because he had a caravan of blockers on his own defense out in front of him. And this guy, aside from Tuesday where Derek Young cooked him a few times, got him with a David Tyree style catch with honestly with pretty good coverage, but a great play by Derek Young. Damarian Young's had a pretty good training camp so far, and this is a guy that played in a bunch of games for the Ravens when Mike McDonald was their defensive coordinator. So there is familiarity there. There's experience playing in this scheme. I'm wondering if Damarian Williams maybe is playing his way potentially into getting the last cornerback spot when Shaquille Griffin gets back, assuming that he's able to play at the level he did in Minnesota last year with the contract Seattle gave him. You have to believe that he's going to be on this roster, but I think there's a chance that Damarian Williams might be somebody that's playing himself into that discussion. And meanwhile, on the defensive line, it feels like Jared Ivey has kind of been that but player in this training camp because he is a very aggressive player. He plays a physical brand of football. You know, Mike McDonald loves those aspects about him, but as an undrafted rookie, there's been a few times that he has crossed the line a little bit. He got kicked out of a practice earlier in training camp because he made too much contact with quarterback Drew Lock in the pocket with their royal blue throwbacks on. Those guys, you don't touch those quarterbacks. So he got put as an example there and got into a skirmish with Anthony Bradford in one-on-ones. Cooler heads prevailed. That kind of stuff happens every training camp. Today, near the end of practice, he gets a tackle for loss. The issue is you shouldn't be actually tackling the player, and it did happen. He brought down a fellow undrafted rookie, Jacardi Wright, in the backfield, and he quickly, you could see this from the sideline, he quickly was trying to get him up off the ground. Like, I didn't put him on the ground. And so Mike McDonald was talking about that today after practice. He was smiling when asked about Jared Ivey because the plays are there. You are seeing him get his hands up and knock passes down. He's creating pressure. He's getting into the backfield. You're starting to see him rotating a little bit with the second team defense. So big number 51 is making that all SEC performer start to show up a little bit. But he's got to clean up some of the practice etiquette stuff as far as what the Seahawks are allowing. You stay away from the quarterback, keep guys up, don't get him to the ground. Everything up to that point is perfect. He's playing with the type of tenacity that they're looking for, but these are your teammates at the end of the day, and he's got to figure that out. But I will say this, his presence is being felt for better or worse in some instances. He is playing like I expected to see him play, where you're seeing the really physical play, the heavy hands, jarring guys back, creating more pressure with penetration than you would expect with his athletic profile that wasn't very good coming out of athletic testing in the pre-draft process. He just plays faster and quicker than those numbers would suggest. You add in the physicality. I still think Jared Ivey is a guy that has a really good shot to make this football team if he can cut down on some of these extracurriculars that are going on. I think a lot of it is just him playing really hard. You just have to know where that line is where you can't cross. And he's had a couple times as a rookie where he has been unable to follow those unwritten rules, so to speak. When I come back, we're going to have some offensive takeaways from today's 8th training camp practice. Some exciting things happening on that side of the football as well in the third padded session here at the VMAC. I'll be diving into that up next here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I've never actually been on the green. I've never done real golf, but I'm an avid mini golfer, and I love the trick shot. Happy Gilmore movies. I'm a big fan. The opportunity to watch him play mini golf. I always like to do those shots, banking it off of objects and trying to get it into the hole. I did it at several places as a kid. I still like to go mini golfing. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of the clubhouse. Go to without chasing down the beverage cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is also not good on subscription orders. Welcome back to the Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Practice number 8 now in the books at the VMAC. The Seahawks going back to pads today after a walkthrough session yesterday. And as I mentioned earlier, most of these practices, it's felt like, well, the defense got the better of the offense today, or the offense rebounded and they were the side that got the better of the other side. I felt like today was as evenly matched of a practice as we have seen from the Seattle Seahawks. But certainly there were some things on offense that stood out as positives, and the biggest negative was on this side of the football. Let's start on the positive side of things. The passing game, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, rookie Jalen Milroe, there's been some moments in the first week where we've seen all three of these quarterbacks shine. There's also been some tough decisions. There's been some picks, some of them being just great plays by the defense, maybe a hair too late getting the ball out. And it feels like the passing game in Klint Kubiak's offense has very much been a work in progress. And I would say that that is the case coming out of today. But this was the best performance that we saw from all three offenses in terms of getting the ball downfield, generating some chunk plays. For Sam Darnold, the big play that stood out to me, they were doing some situational work in their first team session. Marquez Valdes-Scantling comes open at the last second going over the middle. It was a 3rd and 2 situation, and Darnold fires off his back foot a missile over the middle, right in stride to Valdes-Scantling, turns upfield, gets 18 yards on the play. So 3rd and 2, now you got first down, and they were in the red zone at the end of that play. Darnold made a couple of nice downfield throws as well. Defense got some hands on a few of those passes with really tight coverage, but looks like he is continuing to be more comfortable in this offense. Drew Lock hit Jake Bobo on a slant, and I'm telling you, if it was a game situation, Jake Bobo might have gone 70 yards because the Seahawks brought 7 on that play. They were blitzing. Drew Lock got it out quick, and Jake Bobo slipped through an arm tackle attempt. And in these practices, they're going to probably blow the whistle, and that's what they did. But he had nobody in front of him. He was galloping for the end zone. 2 plays later, high points of football down the sideline for a 24-yard gain. I don't know if he got both feet in bounds, but the refs there said that he did, so it's going to count. It was a really nice effort, a nice catch made against Nehemiah Pritchett in coverage. And then Jalen Milroe at the end of this practice, we got to see him bootleg out to his left and take off for a big gain in a 2-minute drill. 2 plays later, Brady Russell down the seam on a skinny post. Perfect pass from Jalen Milroe, connecting with him, 35-yard gain. Those are the kind of plays they're going to jump out to Mike McDonald, John Schneider, and everyone else in this building in terms of how Jalen Milroe is responding to some of the adversity that he's had in the first couple of padded practices. Had a couple ugly interceptions that he threw. I thought today was easily the best day in pads that Jalen Milroe has had, and it was a really big step forward, especially seeing the way that he handled that 2-minute drill, both with his legs and his arms. So you're starting to see that aerial attack come together some for the Seattle Seahawks. Another thing that's jumping out to me on offense that is a positive. I'm looking at a negative and turning it into a positive. At the tackle position, Charles Cross, the big news coming out of today, Charles Cross undergoing surgery for a dislocated pointer finger. He's going to be out probably till after the Packers preseason finale. The Seahawks think they will have him back at some point in between then and week 1. He's going to be ready for the season opener. The timeline made it an easy decision for Charles Cross to get this fixed rather than try to play through it. And so Cross is going to be out for a few weeks, and that means Josh Jones and Mike Jarrell are going to get the bulk of the snaps. Now, we even saw Jalen Sundell playing some right tackle today because they have a few fewer bodies at those tackle positions than they have at guard and at center. So we got to see some Jalen Sundell there, but Mike Jarrell played a lot with the 2s at left tackle. Josh Jones played a lot with the 1s at left tackle, even got some work on the right side as well. Jarrell got a handful of plays with the 1s. Jarrell had a really nice blitz pickup on Nick Emmanwori and it was something that a lot of the other tackles had not been doing because Emmanwori has been getting into the backfield frequently. But in this particular one, Jarrell worked off the combo and he got to number 3, was able to stop him in his tracks. So I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Mike Jarrell. He looks very comfortable at left tackle position. He didn't play at all last year for the Seahawks. And Jones is that stable veteran that has started a bunch of games at both tackle positions. He even started some at guard inside. So it sounds like that is kind of a competition. I would think that Josh Jones is going to be the front runner there because of his game experience. But Mike Jarrell looks much more polished than he did last year now that he's had a full NFL offseason to really work on his craft. He's been good in one-on-ones so far with the pads on. I'm eager to see what he looks like in the preseason. So kind of an interesting opportunity there with Charles Cross being out for a few weeks, that those guys are going to get more opportunities playing with first and second team offenses, that maybe, just maybe, that does turn into a competition at the swing spot. The competition of the offensive line that did not go well today for anyone was the center position. And I joke about it. I don't know if all those guys just hit their snooze buttons a few too many times before they got to the team facility for the early practice this morning or what. But it was a rough day for the centers as a whole. It just felt like a few bad snaps from one player just made it contagious. And unfortunately, Christian Haynes had his worst day as he tries to adapt to the center position. He's been a guard for his entire football career. And I thought Tuesday he looked really good at the center spot. He was crisp and making crisp snaps, was getting off the ball and doing a number of things. He had a couple plays that didn't go his way, but I thought, at least from a snap perspective, that it looked like he was getting more comfortable there. We saw the opposite at today's practice. He had an aborted snap under center. He had 2 that he airmailed. He had a play where he didn't get the snap off and everybody else jumped. It looked like the movie The Replacements. So he, on 2 different occasions, got pulled out of the lineup in the middle of a team session because you can't get anything done when there's bad snaps consistently or poor timing. So not a good day for Christian Haynes. Oluwatimi had a couple snaps that airmailed on him as well. And Jalen Sundell had a couple that got away from him. So again, it felt like it was kind of a contagious day where one center struggled and then everybody else ended up struggling. They're hoping to have that competition settled by the second preseason game. And if it looks like it did today or anywhere close like it did today, it might be tough to make that decision for the wrong reasons. So hopefully this was just a one-off. These guys come back tomorrow and play a lot better, because the snapping and just the overall play from those centers was very underwhelming today, and a lot of mistakes that need to be fixed, that need to be shored up. You can't afford to have those kind of snaps, that many snaps that are either hitting guys in the legs or aimed at their legs or going so high that Yao Ming can't catch them. That's what we saw out there with the center position. And the last one, let's finish it with a positive here. Ken Walker III, another guy, the hype train going into the final year of his contract. I've talked about the strength that he has added to his lower body. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Ken Walker in this offense so far. He had a really nice gain on a screen play today. He had another run on literally the next play where he made Reek Woolen miss. I don't think Woolen got a hand on him as he tried to crash inside, make a play, and Walker got 20-plus yards before they blew the play dead on that one. I just think you're seeing a guy that it looks like he's pretty comfortable in this Klint Kubiak scheme. He's looking healthy, which is the biggest thing. And I'm really curious to see when we get to the real football games, how much that extra strength in his lower body is going to pay off in terms of breaking tackles and creating more yardage after contact than we've already seen from him. I just think number 9 looks really crisp right now. He looks like he is playing confident. He's healthy. And he loves the fact he's in an offense that's talking about running the ball, and they're actually doing it on the practice field. They are preparing to be a team that's going to run the football a lot on Sundays. Coming up next, originally was planning to go into another interview from training camp. I will get to that MVS interview on tomorrow's show, hopefully. Had some issues uploading it today. I'm going to be breaking down some of the players that are rising on my bubble watch that are in the right direction to make this football team, and some players that maybe are heading in the wrong direction. That will be coming up next here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more for other expenses that pop up in my life. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, or even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is now smoother than ever. Thanks to Monarch Money, you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Seahawks podcast, Thursday edition. This is your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. We are now a full week into Seahawks training camp, a little over a week. We've had 8 practices in the books. And so it's time for our first stock watch of training camp. I like to say bubble watch this time of year, looking at players who have raised their stock, whether that's being a starter or just making this football team in general, and players who maybe have hurt themselves a little bit. And I want to start off here on the plus side of the bubble watch, players that have improved their stock. And I want to go to the receiving core first here, and Derek Young. And this has been a player that everybody has been waiting. I certainly have. If you're a regular listener to this podcast for the last couple of years, you know I've been waiting for number 83 to break out, because I feel like all the physical tools are there. He's got the hands. He's got the ability to run jet sweeps. He can return kicks and punts. That's not something they've tried to do too much with him, but he's done it at the college level, and he's incredibly smart. This is one of the smartest guys on Seattle's team. He's got an engineering degree. So I have been waiting for 83 to break out. And look, I wanted to see how he was going to come out today, because we saw his best practice as a Seahawk by a very wide margin on Tuesday with the David Tyree catch off of a defender's helmet and another really good contested catch where he came back on an underthrown ball and stole it away from the corner and then took off for big yardage. Today, he had a couple more really nice catches during their team in 7-on-7 periods. None of the big plays like he had on Tuesday, but when the ball's going his direction, Derek Young is making plays. He was heavily involved in their special teams stuff as far as being with their perceived first team on their kick and punt coverage units today. Derek Young is a player now. I'm wondering if Torrey Horton is going to be your kick and punt returner, which I think is a very strong possibility. Derek Young could end up being that last receiver that makes the roster because we already know he's a very good special teams player. But if you're starting to see him make plays consistently on offense, the receiving coach has been fired up the last couple of days about what he's seen from him. Klint Kubiak might be the right offensive coordinator to finally unlock something from Derek Young in this offense. So he's got to be number one for me. And number two, George Helani. And this is partially because the injury to Kenny McIntosh, obviously, but I'm looking at this from the lens of third down role. And this is a kid that ever since he first stepped foot on the practice field last year as an undrafted rookie, like all George Helani has done is make good things happen on the football field. We saw the 65-yard rushing touchdown he had on Tuesday, made a couple nice runs in today's practice. He looks like a receiver during their running back pass catching drills with how smooth his route running is, soft hands, caught a ton of passes at Boise State. So George Helani is a guy who at this point, you know, this has been debated by other reporters, other media people on the sideline. Well, do they keep 3 or do they keep 4 running backs? I think the fact this guy was getting a lot of snaps on special teams in the second half last year, coupled with his all-around skill set, he can pass protect. He's a really good pass catcher for a running back. Maybe not to the level Kenny McIntosh is, but George Helani, I think, has a really good chance now to make this football team because of that injury, but he's a guy that has NFL roster caliber talent. It's not like he doesn't belong on a roster. Seattle has the benefit of the doubt there, but I think George Helani is a player that has absolutely helped his cause here. And I got to throw Jalen Sundell as my third guy here, and we're talking the offensive side of the football. He is getting a lot of the first-team reps at right guard. Hasn't been at center very much this week, but it feels like he is the player that's got the momentum right now. Not Anthony Bradford, not Christian Haynes. It feels like he is the player that's got the momentum for the Seahawks on the offensive line in terms of getting that right guard job. So those 3 players on offense. On defense, DeAnthony Bell, he's going to be on the roster. So the bubble watch aspect, we're not looking at a guy that isn't making the team or is trying to battle for a spot. But he is very much in the mix to be that fourth safety that's going to get some snaps. And I've talked a lot about him throughout training camp. He had another really good day today. Broke up a couple passes, had a tackle for loss where he wrapped a guy up. And unlike Jaron Ivey, didn't put him on the ground. It just seems like number 23 is another one of those guys that he just makes positive things happen. And he's got good special teams pedigree as well. So this isn't just about making the roster. It's being a fourth safety, even with Nick Emmanwori playing the way that he is, that you've got a chance to get DeAnthony Bell out there in dime packages, or if they run bandit with 7 DBs in the field, there's going to be opportunities for him. He is going to play some on this defense. He's earned that chance, and he's going to be a core special teams player. Let's flip to the other side of the script here. The players on the opposite side of Bubble Watch that haven't necessarily impressed the way that I thought they were going to and could be in a difficult spot. On offense, I think we got to start at the guard position. And I'm going to mention Bryce Cable here. And look, he's a rookie. He's a 6th-round pick. It's not always a given that a guy that's drafted at that point is going to make headway. But I have not, even against threes, I have not seen number 77 stand out to this point. And I thought we would see him going against that third-string defense, that he would be able to make some things happen in the run blocking game. Pass protection-wise, he's been fine, but one-on-ones have been a challenge for him early on this first week of padded practice. And I just haven't seen Cable emerge. I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to quietly start to sneak up a little bit, and that has not happened yet to this point. And I don't know that he's on this roster right now. In fact, right now, if I had to put a 53-man together, he's not on the roster. I'm hoping I can get him onto the practice squad, but he has not been pushing the guys ahead of him. They've even had Mason Richmond, their 7th-round pick, that's played tackle. They've had him playing some guard instead of Cable with the 3. So it doesn't seem like he is in a great position right now. As for the receiver spot, I've mentioned a couple names as guys that have kind of been rising. Cody White's done some good things in training camp, but he had a drop today. He had a drop in Tuesday's practice. he has very little margin for error in this receiving competition. And while I think he's done a lot of good things when he's had his opportunities, and I still think he's an NFL caliber player, right now I feel like Derek Young is definitely ahead of him. And I think Tyrone Broden Jr., the undrafted rookie out of Arkansas, is right on his tail. So Cody White, he's a good special teams player that gives him a shot, but he hasn't been a kick and punt returner. Some of these other players he's competing against are going to be very much in the mix there. It's going to be tough. He is going to have to play much better in terms of consistency. And that is not usually even an issue for him in training camp practices or offseason practices, but he has had some balls hit him in the hands that have not been caught, and he hasn't been able to take advantage of near as many of his opportunities as he needs to this point. So on offense, Cable, Cody White, the two guys that I think have not been able to take advantage of the chances they've had. As for the defensive side of the football, look, Tyreke Smith is a guy that we've talked about maybe being a dark horse, but I can't tell you that I've seen anything that has jumped out to me from him. And this is another reason I keep bringing up Jadeveon Clowney. Not that Tyreke Smith is in the same zip code as Jadeveon Clowney in terms of talent. He hasn't played very much in the NFL. He's mostly been a practice squad guy in Seattle and briefly in Arizona. But Tyreke Smith was brought back, and I like his physicality. I think he's a solid run defender, but I'm still not seeing anything that's jumping out in terms of rushing the passer if he's wanting to make this roster at least. Nothing that has really jumped out to me to this point. I've seen some splashes from a few of the undrafted guys. Jamie Sheriff has made some nice plays. I have not seen that from Tyreke Smith to this point. And at the linebacker position, this is one that maybe still will turn it around, but Derek Jackson from Kentucky, and maybe now we're seeing why he wasn't drafted and didn't get it immediately signed to Seattle's roster and was a tryout guy instead. I thought he had a pretty good offseason program, but since the pads have come out, I haven't seen anything that looks like a 53-man roster player from Derek Jackson. He has been out of position several times when they have done individual one-on-one drills. He's been overmanned by running backs in their blitz drills. I have seen a player that hasn't had the physicality that I expected based on his Kentucky tape, and he doesn't look like a 4.51 guy right now. I don't know if he's just thinking too much, and so it's slowing him down. He's playing tentative. I was expecting him to be a guy that was going to potentially make things interesting for Drake Thomas and Patrick O'Connell as those backup linebackers, Josh Ross. I have not seen that yet from Derek Jackson. Again, it's fairly early. We could see it turn around preseason. He could be an absolute star and find his groove, but I have not seen Derek Jackson emerge yet the way that I thought he was going to with his college tape and what we saw in OTAs and minicamp. Since the pads have come on, he's been a relative non-factor, and most of the times that I've noticed him as being out of position or not being able to get to a play that I would expect he would be able to get to with his athletic tools. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to dive into practice number 9, and hopefully we'll have our training camp interview with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and the Blue Angels being part of it as well, available on tomorrow's show. Make sure that you listen in and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Go Hawks.